Welcome to the Odds Breakers, your number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Wisconsin, you said it all. Oh, Big Ten football is back, my friends. Welcome back to the Odds Breakers. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers and follow us on social media /the Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag, and for a 200% sign-up bonus, please visit mybookie. Use the promo code odds200. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $17.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. And the free picks have been just killing it lately. Killing it. And we're really happy about that. Hopefully you guys are making some money out there. And I'm just so excited for the Big Ten to be back. Didn't even say which podcast this was. I believe this is podcast 61 of 2020. All right, let's get into a little bit of this episode. And wanted to talk about our NFL prop that hit. Was happy about that on Sunday. It was huge. We were 5-3 in the NFL on this week, and 7-5 in college football, 36-25-4 in college football this year. So we hit a prop that the Jets would be the last winless team, and it hit on Sunday because the Atlanta Falcons beat the Minnesota Vikings, and the New York Giants finally getting their first win against the Washington Redskins. So we sent this play out to premium subscribers, Jets at plus 1,000 or 10-1, that they'll be the last winless team. But we also bet the Redskins at plus 550. Obviously, you hope that it's for the Jets when you make that play. But those were the two plays that we made when I looked at the schedules. And surprisingly, the Redskins won that first game against the Eagles. I mean, who saw that coming? But the Redskins are still sitting there with only one win. So I thought that was a good play on both of those, which makes it 9-1. I did hedge the Jets, though. I put 150% of my bet on the Jets versus Denver Broncos, just a hedge. I wasn't worried about that. The Jets were actually favored that game, if you remember, and the Jets ended up losing that one outright anyway. So it paid about 7.5-1 after the hedge and after counting the Redskins bet. So was really happy about that. I was actually going to send that out to free listeners and free subscribers too, but I actually forgot that. So sorry, but I'm really happy that some of our premium subscribers got that play in for the Jets plus 1,000. My friends, we have a great show for you today because there is a lot going on this weekend. Besides the Big Ten, we have NFL football, going to give you those plays that I have, going to give you my college football plays, and we have Brian Edwards on to break down some of the bigger college football games, well, some of the SEC ones, and a couple ones he picked, as well as UFC 254 with Khabib versus Justin Gaethje. Can't wait for that one, my friends. And hopefully Cub Fan Danny will be back tonight and break down some of his takes on a couple of those fights as well. Before we get into Brian Edwards and some college plays and my plays, I kind of want to run down the slate of Big Ten. Hate to say it, but the books are pretty accurate on a lot of my power ratings here. They seem to line up pretty well, but I'm just going to give you 2 cents per each game here. Starting with Illinois versus Wisconsin. Now, I'm going to cover that one with Brian Edwards, so you'll get my thoughts on that game pretty soon here. But next, we can look into the slate here, scrolling down for the Big Ten. Penn State versus Indiana. Indiana +6 at home. I actually have this game +7 for Indiana from a straight power ratings basis. Indiana is a very dangerous team, and I'm high on them. Look at this spread. It stinks. I mean, this spread is strange with Penn State coming in. Penn State could be looking ahead to Ohio State. So that's an interesting one. I think this game is interesting. Rutgers versus Michigan State. So much variance in this game. Rutgers upgraded at coach with Greg Schiano, in my opinion. And they got some good players that transferred in, like Cruikshank from the Badgers and a couple other players they picked up. You know, they could be a completely different look this year and scare the pants out of some people. That's why that spread opened at 15 and it's down to 13.5. Now Michigan State is kind of on the downward spiral after losing their coach, in my opinion, with Mark D'Antonio. And now they have Mel Tucker as a head coach, which I think is very overrated. And I also think it might have been a bad hire, but Michigan State was kind of in free fall anyway. This 13.5 point spread looks right if you look at kind of the last year's numbers, but Michigan State, they could crap the bed here like we've seen them before, and Rutgers could play a lot better than we thought they were, right? How do you put a number on Rutgers right now? It's really hard with a new coach like Schiano there. You know, right now I have it 13.5 on a neutral and maybe about 15.5. I don't think Michigan has fans yet, is what the spread should be. But apparently there's some money that came in on Rutgers. So I find this fascinating. You know, I mean, if you want to get cute, you can maybe throw a couple bucks on Rutgers to see what happens. But I'm still not done analyzing this one completely. Going to dig a little bit deeper. Next game we have for the Big Ten, Nebraska versus Ohio State. This spread has been stuck at 26 points, and I think that's very interesting too. The total we gave out over 64.5 on our Monday/Tuesday show ended up going up to 68.5. So the total's at 68.5. Now I would lean the over if you didn't get to take that free play. But, I mean, if this gets past 70, I'm probably buying back on the under for at least half, possibly the full amount. We'll see what happens on game day. I'm very excited for Nebraska versus Ohio State. Iowa versus Purdue. This thing's been bouncing around. Some Purdue money just came in, and I think I was kind of leaning Purdue here. I think I have Iowa -2.5 on this one. And Iowa's been great, actually, as a small road favorite. They've been killing teams as a small road favorite for some reason. But at the same time, Purdue has Rondale Moore back. He decided to opt in back. Jeff Brom's a great coach. He was out with COVID, though. I have to double check that. Yeah, it looks like he's got to self-isolate for 10 days. He might not even be here, which makes me lean Iowa for sure. Possibly close to a play here at -3. So, you know, Iowa, I mean, they still got Kirk Ferentz as coach. They have a new quarterback there named Spencer Petras, and he's supposed to be pretty good from what I'm hearing. I think he was a 3 or 4 star recruit. He was a 3-star recruit here, following Nate Stanley. He didn't get a ton of playing time, but he's 6'5", 207, really looks the part there for the Hawkeyes, you know. So they still have Brandon Smith. They still have Amir Smith-Marset. Tyler Goodson's going to be a running back there, I believe. They keep rotating some tight ends there because there seem to be tight end lately with Fant and Hawkinson and just some of their great tight ends that they've had in the past. So we'll see what Iowa does. I like them as a team this year, even though they don't return a ton of production, 50% on offense, 56% on defense. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. The next game we have is Maryland versus Northwestern. Northwestern's -11. Northwestern number 1 in returning production, and that's why you're seeing such a big spread. And Maryland seems to play fast and lose fast. I don't even know if my power ratings straight have it that much of a spread. I think it's lower than that, but if you factor in the pace of play, then it can get above 10 here because Maryland likes to play fast. They do have a new quarterback in Lance Legendry, and they also have Tali Tungavailoa, to his brother that transferred in from Alabama. So that's going to be interesting to see. They're kind of in a quarterback duo here. I think Legendry's going to start. He had some time last year, played a few games, but if he messes up, Tungavailoa is going to be waiting in the cut there. So I'm going to lean to Maryland because Northwestern should never be a double-digit favorite against anybody, but probably going to stay away from that game. And the next one, which might be the last one, you have Michigan versus Minnesota. Michigan, a 3-point road favorite at Minnesota. And you remember Minnesota was a pretty good team last year, beat Auburn in their bowl game, was competing for the Big Ten West until Wisconsin beat them in the snow in a very snowy game. Wisconsin actually passed a ton that game. Jack Cohn was fantastic. But I can't bet Michigan. They are a terrible road team, just laying a couple of points. I don't know why that is. It's probably because they go up in competition. They tend to choke a little bit. Not super excited to play Minnesota here, but yeah, I'm going to watch the spread a little bit more before I make a decision. Let's get into a few games that I do have a better feel for and your free plays for college football week 8. Going to start right off here with Virginia versus Miami. Miami -11.5. The total on this game is 58. This spread on this game tells me that Miami can beat Virginia by multiple scores. Looking at 11.5. Looking at Virginia, the only team that they handled was Duke in a majorly misleading final score. Since Duke, Virginia's lost by double digits all 3 times to run-of-the-muck ACC teams. They are -0.86 yards per play, -0.86, that's almost a full yard, and giving up 35 points per game. Miami, on the other hand, had that Clemson stinker in the rain, but was able to beat a better team in Pittsburgh at home by 12 points. They could have scored again. If you remember, they took a knee, which really affected the total in that game. It ended up at 50 points here. Miami is a plus 0.6 yards per play, and I think they could really put a beating on Virginia, similar to what we've seen when they played Florida State. Miami's hungry here. Miami puts up 35 points per game on average. They're looking towards a bye after this game. I feel like they beat the crap out of Virginia and they come into the bye. Bet the Canes here, 11.5, 2-star premium shared play.
Have you found Jesus yet, Doug?
I didn't know I was supposed to be looking for him, sir.
Next game, we have Middle Tennessee State versus Rice. -3. Total on this is 50. We gave this out to members at -2, but the -3 or even 3.5 is looking just fine to me. The play, honestly, is more of a fade on Middle Tennessee State University. Rice returns a lot of production, ranking 10th in the nation. Okay, this is their first game of the year, so they've had lots of time to prep for this team. Middle Tennessee State this year is a very bad team at 1-5 and a negative 0.92 yards per play. That's just awful. They also have a negative 15-point per game differential, and the hardest team that they faced was Army. That's pretty bad. Rice was a bad team last year, but they did finish their year well with 3 W's in a row, One of those W's was against Middle Tennessee State University. My power ratings have Rice by 6 points at home here. Jeff Sagarin has this game by 8 points, and Team Rankings power ratings has Rice by 14 points.
Unreal.
Take Rice -3, 2-star premium shared play. Finally, we have Texas State versus BYU. BYU laying 29 points at home. The total on this game is 60.5. This is like a Clemson type spread, or a or maybe like a Florida spread if they were playing someone bad. Yeah, maybe Clemson's bigger than that. Never mind. Sorry, no disrespect to Clemson. Like maybe if like Florida or Texas A&M or Wisconsin or Penn State or somebody like that was playing Texas State, you'd probably see a 30-point spread. Well, BYU's laying almost 30 here. Texas State's bad, but they shouldn't be over a 4-touchdown dog here. BYU's off a hard-fought game versus Houston last week, and I think it took a lot out of them. I watched that game. It was very exciting. Now, Texas State last week lost to an improved South Alabama, and at the end of the game, they kind of blew it here. I mean, they're up in the fourth quarter here for a little bit, and then they lost momentum. This is their 5th road game in a row. And one has to wonder if either they're just shot or maybe they're just used to it by now. I mean, I'd be shot at the 3rd and 4th road game, but by the 5th, I'm like, okay, well, send us wherever you want, in my opinion. The Bobcats can be very dangerous. They almost upset Boston College a month ago during ref ball, and they kept it very respectable against SMU, only losing by 7 points. They're also finally healthy. They're a negative 0.28 yards per play, which isn't good, but it's not terrible. You know, it's not terrible. BYU could let down here a little bit. You know, this is, if there's a flat spot in their schedule, it's probably this spot, and they might just try to finish out with a W. Maybe even have some second string in there, some third string towards the end. I think this is the spot where you want to take the Bobcats here. I got BYU winning by 21 and not 29. So I'm taking the Bobcats in this situation for 2 stars, premium share, and make sure you sprinkle that.
Where's my money, bitch?
All right. Now it is time for our guest, Mr. Brian Edwards from MajorWager.com. Now, I'm very excited to welcome back a longtime friend of the show. You've heard him on many sports radio shows across the country. You can find some of his work at VegasInsider.com and at MajorWager.com. I'm happy to welcome back Mr. Brian Edwards from BrianEdwardsSports.com. You can follow him at VegasBEdwards. Brian, like I said last time, we live in some very, very strange times, my man. How's life been treating you?
Oh, man, life's good. I mean, I wish my Gators didn't have so much COVID right now, but I'm hoping it ends up being a blessing in disguise. I think the SEC kind of did the Gators a solid favor in pushing the Missouri game back as well. The facility has been closed for, I don't know, like 10 days out there, hoping and optimistic that we can start practicing again on Monday. And, as long as we can field 53, I think we'll be okay to beat Missouri at home. But then we got Georgia up next. But Kiev, life is good, man. After only the UFC for like 3 or 4 months, we are busy as can be, and I'm loving it.
Awesome. That's great. That's great to hear, man. And we were going to talk a little SEC before, but we had some technical difficulties. So I'm really glad that you were able to find some time, come back on the Odds Breakers, man. And we're doing great, having a great college season. The NFL's kind of 50-50-ish right now, but we're having one of our best college seasons right now. So really happy about that. But speaking about college football, what are your thoughts on that huge game last week, Georgia versus Alabama? I might have been like 6 beers in by the time that thing started, but
I was right there with you, my man. I was right there with you.
I enjoyed the game. And what are your thoughts on it as a whole?
Yeah, so I was watching the Ole Miss Bama game with some Bama fans that are friends of mine from Atlanta. They were down here at the beach that weekend. And boy, they were so stressed out that game. And then after the game, they're like, what do you think the line's going to be? And I was like, well, if I had to take the bets, I would make Bama -10. I suspect it'll open 7, maybe 7.5, and we'll just see what happens with the market. And I think Circa sent it out at 5.5. Circa seems to be the first book out every Sunday these days.
Yep.
And I was able, I forget if it was Sunday night or Monday morning, I was able to get Alabama at 4.5, and I kind of look at 4 as a key number, kind of like 3, 7, 10, 14, et cetera. And I bought it to 4, and then it was before the Saban news came down. There was a line at 6.5, so I did a little hedge for only like 20% of my original bet on Bama. So I had a nice hedge at 4 and 7. Then the Saban news comes out. And, and I like the over as well. I had gotten 56. I can't get totals sometimes till Tuesday or Wednesday. I had gotten 56.5 and bought it to 56 because 56 is a key number on a total of multiple of 7. So I was loving my positions at over 56 and Alabama -4 and Georgia +7. Then the COVID news with Saban happens, and I still liked it. Yeah, I still liked my position. And then I kind of started getting some news and hearing that he tested negative as early as Thursday morning, the first negative. And, if you have more negatives. And then Saturday afternoon, the noon slot Eastern, as the teams that Georgia had pimp slapped, being Auburn and Tennessee, as they were both looking just horrendous in Auburn's loss at South Carolina and Tennessee's blowout home loss to Kentucky, those victories for Georgia were not aging well. And as the day progressed, I just started, and Saban coming back and that little momentum, if you will, I just became more and more convinced as the day progressed that Alabama was going to pimp slap them. I even tweeted out they're going to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns. Now, obviously, I had some anxious moments the first half and beyond, but they finally got it done. And they're not the normal vintage Saban defense, but over the course of 4 quarters, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle and Mechie are going to hit you for big plays over the course of 60 minutes. There's nothing you can do about it. Georgia's got a top 5 defense in the country, and Alabama still put 41 on them, and I hit my bets, so it went swimmingly for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, nice work there. Halftime was interesting. Georgia was a lot of people thought Georgia was going to stop them, and I was actually one of those people. I tried to get a bet on Alabama at the half. For some reason, I couldn't get it at any of my books either. But, at the same time, I had a little bit on Georgia when the number was at the 6, and I was trying to get back on Bama because I just saw second half in Tuscaloosa went into fruition the way second halves in Tuscaloosa go a lot of times. So Georgia, for some reason, when they crap the bed, man. I don't know, Kirby Smart just can't keep up sometimes. And I think it's just a testament to how the SEC and college football has followed the whole offense is now more important than defense. You can see that with Alabama, right? You can see that they're putting up massive yards per play, and their defense doesn't even matter if you can't stop them, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's because the offseason or, with the COVID and less, scheme time preparation, especially the teams that had coaching changes. I don't know what it is, but the offenses certainly seem way ahead of the defenses really across the country, but in the SEC in particular, where that's usually not the case. I don't really have the reasoning for it, but I mean, maybe it was just, the weird offseason, the unprecedented offseason, but it's certainly the offense is better than the defense right now, and that's rare in the SEC.
Oh, totally. It's rare, and now there's not a ton. It's shifting towards that because you're seeing a lot of these teams not playing a ton of defense. I guess Tennessee we thought had a defense, right, for a little while. Kentucky maybe has a defense. Ole Miss sure as hell don't. Arkansas does a little bit, not much. LSU sure as hell don't this year. Florida, I think Florida has more of a defense than they've shown. You would know more about that, though. I think they gave up a few too many points a couple times, but the Gators, I think, will get it together. Those COVID things must be bugging the shit out of you.
the Ole Miss game, we had 3 defensive senior starters out, and then a 4th got a targeting either on the first or second possession of the game. So there was a little bit of an excuse in the Ole Miss game. But in week 2 against South Carolina, and they should have scored more than 24 points on us, they moved the ball a lot better than a 24-point outing, and they were down deep in the red zone at the end, and they had like 5 drops in the first half alone. South Carolina did, but that game, Florida only had 2 guys out, and Kyrie Campbell, our best D lineman, and Brad Stewart, and Campbell and Stewart are going to get drafted. They'll probably be anywhere from 3rd to 6th round guys. But Stewart was back for A&M. Florida was only missing 1 significant player, that being Kyrie Campbell. And, everybody's got injuries and 1 significant guy out. That is no excuse for the way A&M ran the ball down Florida's throat. So the COVID, obviously we got more COVID since the A&M trip, but there was absolutely no excuse for the way Florida's defense played in College Station. Zero, none whatsoever. And there's a lot to work on, and hopefully they can get it corrected. And what's weird, and it kind of goes for Alabama's defense too, Florida's defense has got plenty of proven veteran talent and future NFL players, but the Florida defense has been, I'll use your word, shit is what they've been so far.
Yeah, man. Well, the SEC is still the SEC, and they're still the division of the, the conference of college football, in my opinion, especially after all the shenanigans the Big Ten pulled over this offseason. But we do have some Big Ten football back, my man. And starting on Friday night, where I'll be. Illinois versus Wisconsin, and the spread is around a 19-point spread. The total on this game is 51.5. And I'll start, if you don't mind, sir. Wisconsin is kind of something I study a little bit more than any other team, but this is actually a big revenge spot for Wisconsin. Now, I don't factor in revenge that high, personally, into the lines. But in this situation, you have to remember that had they not lost to Illinois last year by that last-second field goal and how they just kind of crumbled at the end, the guy kicks a pretty decent-sized long field goal and Wisconsin loses by a point or 2, they make the college playoffs. And Oklahoma does it because that Ohio State loss would have been forgiven in the Big Ten championship, and they would have been the 4th seed. That's how these players might be approaching this game. The Badgers return their D-line. They return their secondary. They only lose 2 linebackers from the starters last year, but they're damn good. Zach Bond and Chris Orr were very good. As a matter of fact, they're so good in the Big Ten title game when they were both out on injury in the second half. Ohio State pounded and pounced all over Wisconsin. So they're just going to need some big games from Isaiah Green-May and Jack Sanborn and some of the guys replacing them. The biggest thing here, of course, is Zach Mertz, the new quarterback coming in. He was probably the most highly touted quarterback that Wisconsin's ever seen. 4-star kid, just a beast of an arm. If you watch some of his YouTube videos, you'll see him hitting receivers in the Senior Bowl and stuff like that. He was borderline 5-star kid, pro style. He looks the part. He really does. The question is, we've seen hype before. Is it going to relate to Wisconsin this year? Because Wisconsin has questions at wide receiver. They do. They have a few questions at offensive line. Dietzen decided to come back, so I think they returned 3 instead of 2 offensive linemen. But they lost a speedy guy named Cruikshank. He transferred to Rutgers, and I don't know what the hell happened. I guess he wasn't happy, but you also have a new coach at Rutgers there, as we all know, and you wonder if there was something involved. But anyways, Cruikshank was having a pretty good year. He was doing some end arounds, a very fast 4.3, 4.4 type guy. I think it's 4.3, solid. And, he's gone. And now you lose Quintez Cephas and A.J. Taylor. You're left with Pryor and Danny Davis there. And those guys are seniors now, but they were never, there were 2-star guys. Wisconsin's receiver core is just a lot of lower guys, but are seniors. Kind of like maybe something you'd see on a BYU receiving core, right? And so, I'm concerned about that a little bit. We'll see if Graham Mertz can hit him. I do like the fact that they returned Ferguson. That tight end's a beast. Barry Alvarez's grandson, actually, and he has just been playing fantastic over the last few years. Illinois, they rank 12th in returning production. That's pretty good. They're led by Brandon Peters at quarterback. I'm not sure how much improvement we're going to see from Brandon Peters, but the defense under Lovey better show up this year, or else I don't know what the hell they're going to do with Lovey. He's got a contract extension till like 2021 or 22, like a year ago, too. I was against that, but it's not like anyone was going to pick him up if you signed him for another year. But in my opinion, I think Illinois improves. I do. And I think the spread's a little high on this. I Wisconsin by 17 if I even add a little for revenge. And so I'm not up to 19, man. My problem is I don't know how Illinois is going to do if it's raining out there. The weather doesn't look too great. So those are my thoughts on the game. No play for me. What do you think?
Well, Illinois was a team that was really good to me starting after that big win they had over Wisconsin. And you got to remember that Jake Hansen, their linebacker, I mean, he was on his way to All-American honors and might have even won the Butkus Award. He got hurt within a week or two of that Wisconsin game. But before the Wisconsin game, they were in a one-possession game, like early fourth against Michigan at home. They ended up losing by 17, but they easily covered. Then they had the shocker against Wisconsin. Then they go to Purdue as a 9.5-point dog. They win by 18. They smashed Rutgers by 28. And then I had them plus 500 on the money line, and they rallied from way down at Sparty. Was kind of the dagger to the D'Antonio era, really. And then I had them again the next week at Iowa. They covered for me again and possibly could have won that game had this roughing the passer late hit call or non-call that gave Brandon Peters the concussion, and he didn't play the rest of the year. But they had a great stretch there, about 5-6 games. And when Peters got hurt, their offense was just garbage after that. But he had an 18-8 TDI&T ratio last year. Now, they lost Corbin, the running back, but they've got Hansen, the linebacker, coming back. And they've got good special teams. They've got their top 3 receivers back. And I leaned Illinois on this game. I don't want to imply to your listeners like this is some heavy money play for me on this one, but I do like Illinois a little bit. I'm going to go with them catching the big number.
And you might get a situation where the kids come up and say, hey, we played with these guys. We know how to play them. They don't scare us type thing. That could happen too. A lot of people say, oh, revenge. Well, that's why I don't like to factor revenge in too much, because you also have the other side with the kids believing in themselves. Sometimes there's a team. It's kind of like Pitt Notre Dame every year. This is why the Pitt spread's not that big. The kids just know they can play with this team, right? They play them every single year, and you get a lot of that. So good. So I like your thoughts there. It's not a play for me, but sounds like Brian likes it a teeny bit. Let's move into an ACC game here. Georgia Tech versus Boston College. I wrote down -3. It was juiced when I wrote this down yesterday. I think I prepared a little for this. Total on this was 55. Brian, I'll let you go first on your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I made Boston College -10. If you were wrapped up in the Alabama-Georgia game and or UNC-FSU or whatever and didn't watch any of this game in the night slot last week, talking about BC at Virginia Tech, extremely misleading final score. That was a one-possession game for most of the first 3 quarters. In fact, BC was only down 17-14 with 4 minutes left in the third. But they were -5 in turnover margin, including 3 fumbles that set Virginia Tech up with very short fields and ended up being touchdown drives. But you look at the box score, Boston College had a 24-23 edge in first downs. Virginia Tech only out-yarded BC 461-435. BC is still 3-2, both straight up and against the spread. Their only other loss was North Carolina at home in a game they were down 2, going for a 2-point conversion with 45 seconds left, and it turned into a pick 6, or better yet, or you should say a pick 2, I guess, because you only get 2 points when you return a PAT or a 2-point conversion back to the house. But look, the difference between this Boston College team, well, A, I like Hafley, their new coach, And then they've got the former highly recruited kid out of Notre Dame, Phil Dracovic, who threw for 345 yards and 2 touchdowns against Vatech last week. He's got one of the better tight ends in the country in Hunter Long, who has 35 receptions for 416 yards and 3 touchdowns through just 5 games. And they've also got one of the ACC's best receivers in Zay Flowers. And Georgia Tech just obviously got stomped by Clemson. Look, I think the future is bright for this true freshman quarterback, Jeff Sims, and he's had plenty of moments so far this year, a lot of them against Louisville in that 46-27 win a few weeks back in the primetime spot. But he's also turnover prone like most true freshmen are. He's only got a 6-9 TD-INT ratio. Like I said, I made Boston College -10. I think they're going to win this game by at least 2 touchdowns. I think BC is the best bet on the board, and go ahead and get it now because I don't think it'll be at 3 very much longer.
Look at that. That's some confidence in this line, baby. I like to hear that, man. You know, the strange thing about Boston College has actually had a slightly harder schedule, and I'm not even sure if it's slight because Georgia Tech, they have that one Clemson game, and then some middle-of-the-road ACC teams. People look at these teams as lower echelon in the ACC, but this line kind of smells a little bit. For some reason, I do have an issue with Boston College running the ball. They've played some tough run defenses, though. They're only at 2.15 yards per rush, but Georgia Tech can't throw the ball that well. You know, Sims, like you said, 54% completion percentage, 6 to 9 TD to interception ratio. That doesn't cut it, man. That's not good at all. You know, my power ratings actually has Boston College by about 5 points here, right? Yours is bigger, so I'm kind of looking, you know, I was definitely leaning this way, but you might have talked me into a play here on Boston College, in my opinion. So, in my thoughts. So I like what you said to say about them. You know, I was a little leery about them, but their quarterback's playing pretty well over there. And you're right. Virginia Tech was a misleading score, wasn't it?
Yeah, big time. And I think BC is the play here. You know, I actually DVR'd it and I watched some of it on Tuesday afternoon. And yeah, I mean, they just handed Virginia Tech the game. They fumbled it away 3 times. Now, Jurkovec did have 2 picks, but you know, he was lighting them up, man. 345 yards passing. BC is a vastly superior team, and who knows where Georgia Tech's morale is after that kind of pimp slap they took last week.
Oh, that was awful, just awful, and it happened right away to them. So. Let's move on to the next game, another SEC game, South Carolina versus LSU. LSU is laying -6.5 points. The total on this game is 56.5. And I have some questions for you about this, so I'll start. I don't know even where I should be power rating LSU. I try. It's hard for me. I mean, you see the Mississippi State loss is looking worse and worse and freaking worse every single week, man. Just brutal. And I have them 22 points worse than last year, and I'm not even sure if I'm low enough, man. They're a negative .66 yards per play. And how bad would that be if they didn't play Vandy? What would their yards per play be if they didn't get FCS Vanderbilt? Brutal. On the other hand, South Carolina played Vanderbilt too, so I suppose, you know, their stats got a little bit padded from them as well. South Carolina just beat Auburn last week, but they were also outgained by Auburn by over 100 yards. Bo Nix kind of had something to do with that little South Carolina win himself with his picks. My power ratings still have LSU -6, man. If you give them 2 points, I think I can give more. I think I give them 3 points for home field. It's not going to be full. There's going to be some people there, right? So this one kind of smells to me as well. Maybe you can shed some light on this spread.
Yeah, well, I like to go against any true freshman making his first career start and on his Zoom media scrum Wednesday morning Orgeron, his quote was that, Miles Brennan is very unlikely to play this week. He left a little wiggle room by merely calling him very questionable, but he said he's preparing true freshman Max Johnson or TJ Finley to start. So I think we'll kind of see them playing both guys. And South Carolina, since 2017, they're 8-2 against the spread as a road underdog. They've got a little momentum here. They've won back-to-back games. They're 3-0-1 against the spread on the season. Kevin Harris, the true sophomore running back, has really started to produce here the last few weeks. He throws stiff arms with bad intentions. He's got 409 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, averaging 5.0 yards per carry. They beat Auburn last week without perhaps their best player on the whole team, cornerback Israel Mukuamu, that everybody will remember for his 3 interceptions at Georgia last year. He was a second-team All-SEC selection. And South Carolina also got some good personnel news. I don't know if it was last night or this morning, but the Wingate University FCS transfer Jalen Brooks, who they were planning on being a starting wide receiver in the opener against Tennessee, but he had his waiver denied, but they won the appeal. He's been cleared to play. So he's a 6'3" kid who scored a lot of touchdowns at the FCS level, and he gives Colin Hill another quality target outside of Shi Smith, who's one of the SEC's best receivers with 34 receptions, 347 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And LSU has other injury issues besides Miles Brennan. Stingley's playing with a bad ankle. I mean, I think he'll play. He is listed as questionable. And then one of their better offensive linemen, starting offensive guard Ed Ingram, is also listed questionable. And so I like South Carolina plus the 7. Now, I've got it locked in at 7. I noticed a few hours back a lot of books had moved to 6.5. I'm trying to look it up right now, see where it's at. But if it's 6.5, you can buy it at 7. That would be good. And there's some 6.5s and some 6s out there. But I will fade this LSU team with a true freshman more than likely starting at quarterback. I like the Gamecocks here.
Well, my man, I wonder if there's going to be public movement on LSU. I mean, last year, you were early on it. You were on LSU. This year, you're fading it. I wonder if we can catch a 7 or 7.5 again, or is the cat out of the bag, Brian?
Well, like I said, Orgeron left a little bit of wiggle room, and you look at injury reports. I saw a few of them downgraded him to doubtful. His exact words were very questionable, but 2 sentences before that, he said he was very unlikely to play. So it doesn't sound like Miles Brennan is going to play. And even if he does, I mean, it's a pectoral tear. So now he did suffer the injury and keep playing in the Missouri game, and he played really well, but he didn't have 2 very good throws down there on the goal line at the end of the game, and maybe the injury had something to do with that. So even if he plays, he's going to be compromised. And I like South Carolina's momentum. There'll be fans there, but you're not going to have your typical vintage raucous Baton Rouge night crowd that makes it so difficult to communicate, etc. And I like the Gamecocks.
All right, my man. Well, thank you for those plays. Our listeners are very pleased to hear that. If they're especially looking towards South Carolina this week, my man. Well, we have a few minutes left. It's time for a little UFC action. 254. And Brian, I must say, 11 o'clock kickoff time for the UFC on the West Coast here isn't going to be too fun, but we can try to get it through, my man. Oh man, Khabib, your boy, fighting Justin Gaethje. Khabib's a massive favorite, I'm looking at him, I'm seeing him anywhere from 335 to 355 at some books. Oh, geez, man. Why don't we start with the main event? Do you have any words for it?
Yeah, man. Both of these guys are 2 of my favorites. But Gaethje is with apologies to Matt Brown, Gaethje has kind of become my all-time favorite. I mean, Khabib's probably one of my top 10 favorites ever. This is going to be a great fight. What makes it, and I don't have any play on it, it's a no bet for me. What makes it so fascinating is that Gaethje is probably about the only guy that has been wrestling as long as Khabib. I mean, he's been wrestling since he was 4 years old. He was an All-American wrestler in college and all that. But once he turned to MMA, he just fell in love with his hands. And look, he was the champ at 155 in the World Series of Fighting before he came to the UFC. And I've seen highlights of some of those fights, but I didn't see any of those fights. I've seen every second of him in the octagon, and he's never attempted a takedown, and he's never been taken down. So we really don't, we know he's been wrestling since he was 4. We know he's an elite wrestler, but we've never seen it. So that makes it so fascinating. And we know that Khabib is the greatest wrestler in MMA history, with a potential exception of George Rush St. Pierre. But look, it's real simple. I mean, Gaethje has an enormous advantage when the fight is standing, but can he keep it standing? Nobody's really ever been able to keep it standing with Khabib, other than McGregor in round 3. And really, when it is standing, I think it's because Khabib kind of allows it to be standing. And so, I think more than likely Khabib wins, but I think Gaethje has a better chance than anybody perhaps ever, and certainly anybody right now. Tony Ferguson had not been beaten in 7 or 8 years, and the 155-pound division is an absolute shark tank. And Ferguson had won 12 in a row, I think, which I believe is a division record. And Gaethje just absolutely destroyed him. And another factor here is Gaethje has one of the best coaches in all of MMA in Trevor Whitman. And I don't know if, obviously, rest in peace to Khabib's father, who passed away recently. I don't know if that is a good thing for him in terms of his motivation, and probably even, extra motivated, or if it's a bad thing. I mean, it's not a factor in my, thoughts on the fight. We'll just have to see how the result comes out, whether that.
Oh, but everyone's an expert after that, though, Brian. They're like, oh, well, right, this was a betting spot. His father died.
Oh, is that? That's why he lost, of course. Yeah. Hindsight's always 2020.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I feel you. Yeah, after the fight, hindsight's always 2020. But it's going to be a great fight. I'm so excited for it. I hope Gaethje wins, but I love them both, man. They're both great guys. They're both classy guys. They had a sweet press conference earlier today. They're both immensely confident, but they're immensely respectful toward each other as well.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And, I got to tell you, I talked to another UFC guy earlier, and he said the same thing as you did about Gaethje. He said, Gaethje's a better wrestler than you think. The dude's been wrestling forever. He just doesn't use it. He doesn't submit. He doesn't submit people. He doesn't take down people that much. I think if you look at some of the stats here, his takedown average is pretty much 0. it's almost like, but what this tells me though, Brian, and it's something I haven't decided on yet. But maybe Gaethje can last with Khabib. And the distance is 5 rounds. But maybe because of that, and maybe, every time Khabib gets popped, he's just going to get Gaethje to the ground, and they'll be on the ground the whole time. Maybe that plus 170, plus 180 goes the distance. It's not going to be the public side. Because the public's going to be like, Khabib, Gaethje, they're going to beat each other up in 5 rounds. I almost think the contrarian side might be to take it to go the distance, man. Any quick thoughts on that?
No, I like I said, man, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the hell out of that fight. I hope it goes a long time. I mean, I would prefer to see it finish, but I hope it's not till the 4th or the 5th. I saw the under 4.5, and I'm not sure if you're looking at a prop like to go the distance or not. I saw the under 4.5 was kind of priced pretty expensive. So I really just don't want to play anything. I just want to sit back and enjoy the greatness of both of these fighters. Dana said today that everything is trending toward this being the most massive fight in UFC history. And Khabib is a worldwide star, more so than people can even imagine.
Okay, well there you go. You just got us more excited for this event, and it's on at 11 o'clock. Don't worry, your Wisconsin game's on Friday, guys. So don't worry, you can get the fights and watch it next to your tablet or something with some college football, man. Well, hey, we got about 4 minutes. Why don't you run down? I think there was a fighter or two that you did like.
Yeah. So. I like Walt the Big Ticket Harris a lot as he faces Alexander Volkov. I see there's a plus 160 at Bovada, and 5 dimes, but most books are closer to plus 145, plus 150. I think the Big Ticket Harris is going to win in round 1 by knockout. So get a little bit of under 1.5 rounds at plus 123. Well, that's at one offshore I see, or William Hills at plus 120, or you could pay a minus 130 price to get under 2.5 rounds. So you look back at the Big Ticket. He's the guy that some may remember. His stepdaughter was tragically murdered last year, and it was awful. He was in the middle of a 4 fight winning streak. He had 2 KOs inside of a minute. And he was set to take on Alistair Overeem in a main event in Washington, D.C. He obviously had to pull out. You know, they didn't find his daughter for like a month or so. And then he fought Overeem in Jacksonville. I believe that was the second. I think it was that Wednesday card, or maybe it was the next Saturday. I can't remember. But, after the pandemic had started, when they did 3 shows in Jacksonville, it was one of those in the main event. And Harris had Overeem all kinds of hurt. I mean, he had him hurt badly, and somehow he wasn't able to get the finish. And then Overeem came back and got him to the ground with his grappling and beat him in round 2. But Walt Harris has some of the heaviest hands in all of the UFC. We saw Volkov couldn't handle Derek Lewis's hands, and I don't think he can handle these hands from Walt Harris either. And then the other pick I like is Jared Cannonier against Robert Whitaker. Whitaker, since the knockout loss to lose the belt against Adesanya, has had 1 fight. He decisioned Darren Till. I could not believe Darren Till. He didn't even throw a punch in the last 30 seconds. It was absolutely insanity when I thought it was 2-2 going to the 5th. So you look at Cannonier. He's the one who stopped Hermansson's, I think it was a 6-fight winning streak. And he's won 3 in a row. He hasn't lost since fighting at light heavyweight against Dominic Reyes, who just fought Jan Blachowicz. And he had back-to-back losses to Blachowicz and Reyes, who just fought for John Jones' vacant title. And since then, he went down to middleweight, and he's 3-0, and he has looked fantastic in all the interviews. And by the way, 3 finishes. And all the interviews this week, Cannonier looks great. He looks like he's in a great place. And I think Whitaker got fortunate that he faced a gun-shy Darren Till in his first fight after taking the KO loss to Adesanya. So I like Cannonier at a short favorite price. In fact, let me see what it is right now. Right now, I have to pick them at most spots around minus 110 or minus 115. So Harris and Cannonier, those are my 2 plays for UFC 254. All
right, my man. Great stuff here. Plus money on Harris, too. And Cannonier is close to even money. So, great handicaps right there. Really appreciate it. But where can our listeners find your premium plays and your information?
Yeah, you can get all my picks at VegasInsider.com or BrianEdwardsSports.com. And I spell Brian with an I. And they can follow me on Twitter at Vegas B Edwards, and also do some tweeting from the majorwager.com, or you can also find my power rankings and some of my bylines, and I do some tweeting from their Twitter account, which is at majorwageruno, UNO. Kiev, my man, enjoyed it as always. Thanks a bunch for having me, brother.
All right, my man. Thank you again for making some time for us. Make sure you guys check out Brian Edwards. All right, well, that was fun. Now it's time for our NFL Week 7 free plays. And we're going to go right to Green Bay versus Houston. Houston's a home dog of plus 3.5. The total on this baby is 56.5. Green Bay's coming off an embarrassing loss, right? And with a total this big, 56.5, pretty big total. Houston has zero defense, and Green Bay is just going to be extremely motivated to exploit that. Houston had the game last week. They had it. They came back, pulled ahead, and absolutely blew it. How devastating is that? Now Houston has a 1-5 record. They are shot. What now? Out of the playoffs. There's no chance to get, they'd have to win outright, and even the players know that's not going to happen. Curious about how they're going to be motivated this week. What's important to me about this line is literally where I have Green Bay ranked. I have them as a 5.25 favorite here, and that counts having a few fans in Houston for a better home field advantage than what it's been. So my power ratings say to play this. My algorithm has the Packers winning by 3.65, 28.26 to 24.62 to be exact. But, the situation here is screaming to Green Bay right here. So I'm taking Green Bay minus 3.5, and that's going to be a 2.5 star premium shared play.
Duh. Winning.
Next, we have Seattle versus Arizona. Arizona plus 3. The total on this is 56.5. It's plus 3 or plus 3.5. Depends if you want to pay some juice. Arizona had a blast destroying the Cowboys last week. The line moved slightly in their favor this week, plus 5 to plus 3.25-ish due to juice, but not hitting the 3 flat is due to the short week of preparation, right? They have a short week, and bettors like to fade that, especially against the Seahawks. But here's the thing. The Seahawks, they look the part on offense. They put up score for score with any team so far. Well, that's going to continue as long as Russell Wilson continues to have great games. Hasn't had a bad game yet. Trust me, I have him in fantasy. I know this. The issue that I have with the Seahawks this week, they're humming at 5-0, right? This is kind of like an early bye week for them, and I hate bye weeks when the team doesn't need it. Bye weeks do well for teams that are losing or at least lost a few games and have some injuries. Seattle, not so much. It might throw them off a little bit. It doesn't give them a mental break when they're kind of in the zone. It interrupts it. The Seahawks D ranks dead last, giving up 471 yards per game. And did you know that Arizona's offense is actually putting up more yards per game than Seattle? 402 to 396. I actually have Arizona winning this game based on my algorithm, 29 to 23. That's pretty high. My power rating says Arizona winning by 0.75 points. So I'm taking the home dog. I'm going to get some balls here and take it at plus 3 at plus 110. All right. That's how convinced I am on this Arizona team in this spot. Take the Cardinals plus 3, plus 110. Last game we have Buffalo versus the New York Jets plus 13. The total on this is 45.5. The New York Jets are a massive home dog here, and they should be after their performances this year. Okay, they're 0-6 against the spread. They have no chance of making the playoffs. I don't see the Jets scoring much here, and I think both defenses might be a little motivated after last week's performance. The Jets, in the second half, they held Miami to 3 points the whole second half, okay? And Fitzmagic destroyed him the first half, but he was making some throws the second half, and the Jets weren't allowing it. My power ratings have the Bills minus 11.75 here. So my power ratings want the Bills, but my algorithm only has the Bills by 8 points due to the Jets massively underachieving and only averaging 12.5 points per game. They have a piss poor offense. They've got nobody there except for maybe Crowder. Sam Darnold, I don't even know if he's a first-string quarterback. I can't bet the Jets just because of how terrible they had, even though my power ratings kind of leaned that way. But what I do like is that the Bills play at a slower pace, ranking 25th in plays per game at 62.7 plays per game, and the Jets might not score much. That tells me that this is an underplay. I gave this out at 46.5, but I like it all the way down to 44. Take the Jets under 45.5, 2-star premium shared play.
Oh man, I have no idea what's going on.
Now it is time for our refuse to lose teaser. And thanks to the Jets, I lost one last week, but we are 3-3 in teasers, and I plan on improving that because the Chargers are a prime teaser candidate. We're going to tease them down to 1.5 with the 49ers up to +8 versus the Patriots. Here's the thing. The Niners have been playing well on the East Coast. They covered all their spreads on the East Coast by a lot, okay? Played some bad teams, but still, the Patriots aren't that blow you away type team this year. Cam's kind of showing who Cam really is these last couple games. Denver beat him last week. And it's the Niners. They're humming on offense now. Their defense is completely banged up, but I'm trusting them to get enough points to cover the 8 here. I'm going past key numbers of 3, 6, 7, all the way up to 8. So I like that here. And for the Charger side, I mean, Jacksonville is almost in Jets territory here. Gardner Minshew is pretty much starting to show that he may be a bust. So we're going to take that refuse to lose teaser with the Chargers and the Niners. Bow to the gambling gods parlay. Now, this one, we're going to go a little bit more on this one because we're greedy. 12.5 to 1. This one pays. We're actually going to do some spreads and totals with the money lines here. So we're going to take the Cincinnati over 56 versus SMU. We're going to take Rice -3. And Rice plays Middle Tennessee State, as you remember. Miami, we're going to take -11.5. North Carolina, we're going to take at -662 money line. And Liberty, we're going to take the money line at -433. We're going to throw in Buffalo Bills -759 against the Jets, and the Los Angeles Chargers -369. This baby will pay 12.5 to 1. It's just kind of a mix of my favorite college plays that the lines didn't move out of, where I like them, and some NFL money lines. So there you have it. There's your bow to the gambling gods parlay. Best of luck to everybody here. And now it is time for
The Sharp Side of the Force.
The Sharp Side of the Force is brought to you by uwager.eu. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit uwager and use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. All right, let's start with college as usual. Sharp money as of Wednesday night is on Louisiana +1.5 at UAB. 50% of the tickets on Louisiana and 73% of the money. Sharp money on Illinois to +20 to +19 at Wisconsin. 56% of the tickets on Illinois and 83% of the money. Sharp money on Georgia Southern +6 to +5.5 at Coastal Carolina. 45% tickets and 75% of the money's on Georgia Southern. Sharp money on Oklahoma -5.5 to -6.5 at TCU. 46% of the tickets on Oklahoma and 86% of the money. Sharp money on Houston -13.5 at Navy. 49% of the tickets on Houston and 78% of the money. Sharp money on Boston College -3 hosting Georgia Tech. 62% of the tickets on Boston College and 92% of the money. Sharp money on Boise State -14 to -16. 53% tickets on Boise State and 76% of the money. Sharp money on Miami -10 to -12.5 hosting Virginia. 68% of the tickets on Miami and 97% of the money. Sharp money on Fresno State -3.5 hosting Hawaii. 39% of the tickets on Fresno and 93% of the money. Sharp totals. Louisiana versus UAB over 49.5 to 50.5. 49% of the tickets on Louisiana on the over and 86% of the money. Sharp money on Illinois versus Wisconsin over 51.5. 44% of the tickets on the over, and 79% of the money is on the over. Interesting one there. Maybe Wisconsin can score that themselves. Sharp money on Temple versus Memphis over 69 to 71.5. 55% of the tickets on the over, and 93% of the money. Sharp money on Syracuse versus Clemson over 59 to 62.5. Dual action, 68% of the tickets on the over and 98% of the money. Sharp money on Nebraska versus Ohio State over 64.5 to 68.5. 50% of the tickets on the over and 95% of the money's on the over. Sharp money on Alabama versus Tennessee over 64 to 66. 48% of the tickets on the over and 91% of the money. Sharp money on Penn State versus Indiana over 57 to 59.5. 50% of the tickets on the over, but 97% of the money. Sharp money on Wyoming versus Nevada over 50.5 to 51. 52% of the tickets on the over and 89% of the money. Sharp NFL Week 7. Sharp money on Green Bay minus 3.5 at Houston. 58% of the tickets on Green Bay, but 97% of the money. Sharp money on Carolina plus 7.5 to plus 7 at New Orleans. 41% of the tickets on Carolina and 68% of the money's on Carolina. Teddy Bridgewater has been a covering machine in this situation. Just tweeted something out from Todd Furman. Sharp money from the Titans plus 2 to plus 1.5. 41% of the tickets on the Titans, and 86% of the money is on the Titans against the Steelers. That's a big statement there. Sharp totals: Cleveland versus Cincinnati over 50.5. 42% of the tickets on the over and 80% of the money's on the over. Sharp money on Pittsburgh versus Tennessee under 52.5 to 50.5. 52% of the tickets on the under. 91% of the money's on the under. Disagree with that one. Sharp money on Kansas City versus Denver under 49.5 to 46.5. 50% of the tickets on the under, and 91% of the money is on the under. It's going to be cold in Denver. Sharp money on the Bears versus Rams under 47 to 45. 60% of the tickets on the under, and 92% of the money's on the under. Sharp money on the Buccaneers versus Raiders over 52. 47% of the tickets on the over, and 76% of the money. My friends, there's your sharp information. This obviously changes as the lines move. If you have any questions, please feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Now it's time for a little more UFC 254 with Cub Fan Danny. It's time for a little UFC 254. We have our guy, our fight specialist, Cub Fan Danny, to break down this amazing card that we have for Saturday. And Danny, my man, it seems like the timing is a little different, being that is not in America, correct?
Yeah, this is going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be, typically we're watching fights on a Saturday night, and then the wife wants to go out, the lady wants to go out, and you're like, I'm going to go watch the fights tonight. But guess what? This is going to be opposite now. They're selling this card for the Russian fans. So this fight, the main event, does not start until 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you're a West Coast guy, you could watch this fight pretty early along with a bunch of college football, and you're going to have a great Saturday. And then take your lady out with all your winnings that you have from the morning.
Well, there you go, man. For me, it's going to be dual screens. Got to watch it all. It's important. The prelims start so early. I'm just going to I might ignore them. You'll probably watch them, but I didn't see a lot on the prelims anyway. So I'm just really excited for this main card, Danny. And we're going to have some daylight. It's going to be a fun one, isn't it?
Yeah, even the prelims are nice. When Smiling Sam Alvey is your first fight on the prelims, not the early prelims, but the prelims, that's going to be a good card. And Alex Oliveira, early prelims, and you should be able to watch those without going into the pay-per-view. So, there's going to be a lot of good fights, guys. Even the early prelims, Nathaniel Wood and Casey Kenny, those guys like to fight. So that should be a good one as well. But the main card is stacked. It should be a really fun card. They've got 6 fights on the main card. So right now it looks good as long as nobody hits that dreaded virus, right, with COVID. I think it should be good. And I'm excited for it. I can't wait. it's going to be a little bit different. Hopefully I'm not stumbling by 3 o'clock.
That's what I'm saying. Our specific people, it's pretty early for us. We'll see what happens. Let's get into the card then, Danny. You picked a few fights, it looks like. I have a couple. And why don't you get started with one of the not the main event, let's just say. Pick anyone you want.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to go with this one first. Cannonier and Robert Whittaker. I remember when Cannonier first came up, and I was writing some notes down on some of the fighters that I haven't seen before, and Cannonier popped out at me. He came in as a 205er, right? And he was a little bit, listen, they're 205, they're chiseled at 205, but I always looked at, man, he's a little bit small for 205. He's going to throw hands, and I always said, this guy's got some bombs in his hands. Well, he's dropped in weight, Kiev. Now he's fighting at 185, and at fighting at 185, boy, he's a big 185. He's really taking it to guys, and I think he's hungry. I think he's found his stretch here. He beat David. He beat Anderson Silva. He beat Jack Hermanson back to back to back, and he did it in impressive fashion. Not taking it to the distance, but just knocking people out. Right. I'm really, really, really impressed with this guy, especially with his weight drop. Now, Robert Whittaker's another guy who used to be the champion, Kiev. I'm sure you remember that. He got really, really sick. But he's always been a guy that wants to throw and bang, which makes this style of fight, going to be fun. Here's the thing with Robert Whittaker. Whittaker has been dropped in almost every one of his fights, and he's fought the top guys. But he's been dropped. Even though he's won, he got dropped against Till. He got knocked out against Adesanya. Romero dropped him a few times. So he's been dropped before. Your jaw, your chin does not get better. Your brain does not get better going into fights. And going into a guy with Cannonier, I don't know if any one of these guys that he's fought before has the power of Cannonier. The power. So, I look at this fight and I'm saying to myself, it's basically a toss. Right? Minus 115 for Cannonier right now, and it's a minus 105 for Whittaker. This fight started, Cannonier was a plus 160, so if you got on him right away, that was going to be a good play. I love Cannonier in this fight, right? In fact, I like him so much, I could see him winning by a knockout in the second round. That's how much I like the guy with his power. A little bit of older fighter, but he doesn't have a lot of miles on him. And I think that's very important with these guys fighting, especially when it comes to Whittaker, who's taken a beating here in the past few fights. Mm-hmm. He's gonna get smacked one time by Cannonier and get dropped. So I like him, Cannonier, straight up. I'll pay a little bit of the juice because it's not that bad. But, you can get Cannonier inside the distance at plus 165, which is a nice one. They're pretty much staying away. All the books are staying away from Cannonier with the knockout for right now. But you can get it inside the distance, right, at 1 plus 165, which is giving you actually even better odds, right? Because if it comes out, I can see maybe Cannonier at a plus 150, 140, which sounds silly, but inside the distance at plus 165, I think that right now is going to be a good play for you.
My man, when I first looked at this fight, I'm not going to lie, I was leaning Robert Whittaker. I mean, when I look at who Whittaker's beat, and we've watched him a couple times, as you know, obviously. Israel Adonijah is really the only thing that really happened to him recently, right? Darren Till he beat up afterwards. Yoel Romero was obviously that double fight back in 2017 and 2018, right, when he had the title. It just doesn't seem like he has a lot of bad losses here, and he's fought some good guys. Derek Brunson he beat, Souza, So it's like it's really hard for me to have some faith on Cannonier right here. And I know you, Brian, I had on the show earlier, liked him too. So there must be something to this Cannonier guy.
It's a drop of the weight when you're going from 205 to 185 and keeping that power. And then we're looking at Whittaker, who's been dropped a lot. He's won his fights, but he's going down a lot more. Yoel Romero is really probably the guy with the biggest power going up against Cannonier. But I don't know, man. There's something about his right hand and taking somebody out that quick. Hey, he's really got some. He doesn't throw a lot of strikes, right, per minute per round, but he is completely accurate. I think he's about 55 to 60% accuracy in his punches. And those are power punches, right? They're not soft jabs. They're not play smacks. They're powerful punches. So he's very accurate with that as well. I believe he's more accurate than Whitaker. In terms of the ground game, yeah, I think Whitaker has a little bit more, but this fight's going to stand up. This is not going to the ground, okay? And I honestly think this fight's going to end in the second round with a cannoneer right, and that's the way I'm looking at it.
All right, well, I'm excited for this one for sure. I'm going to stay off my Whitaker lean. I was leaning him. I think you guys might have taken me off it, but I will sit back and enjoy this fight. I like it's sometimes you just kind of enjoy them without any money on it. That's important too. So I have a fight here that was going to happen in August, and I did give this out, but I still like it. My odds aren't quite as good. Because I'm guessing because I was on the right side of it, but unfortunately, Ion Kutelaba had COVID, and it was against Magmad Ankalaev. So this got postponed. I was really upset about it because I thought I had a good play on it. But if you remember, this fight was supposed to be, I believe, it was August 11th, August 12th, something like that. But Ion got his positive test. But I still like the play. It's a rematch from February 29th this year where Magomed Ankalaev won in 38 seconds with some head kicks and punches. Now the problem was there's some debate, and you mentioned it already, that the refs shouldn't have called it that quickly. Well, even if they shouldn't have called that quickly, I think the fight still would have went under 1.5 rounds. These guys hate each other, man. They talk smack about each other. I've watched some of the events leading up to this fight here, but Ion's a puncher. He's going to go for the jugular immediately. His fight time averages less than 1 round at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. That's his average full fight time is 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Magmad has 8 KOs, no submissions, and 5 decisions. But when he fights a stand-up fighter for Magmad, it ends quickly. So I'm going to take the plus money here, and it's actually getting closer to even. I gave this out a month and a half, 2 months ago in August at plus 125. It's at plus 105 under 1.5 rounds. So I'm not even picking a side here. I'm just picking the under 1.5 rounds. And I think that it's not even going to get past 7 minutes and 30 seconds, Danny.
Yeah, perfect play. I like that you're looking at this in a way that these guys are going to throw punches and hate each other as much as they can, right? So, there's no, and I'm glad you did it the way you did, because there's really no benefit for you to drop a minus 320 for Magomed, who I think is going to win. But I love the play. You can get it some places at plus 110, by the way.
Awesome. Glad we have some agreement, my man. What do you have next?
All right, let's do the Alexander Volkov and Walt Harris fight.
All right, fantastic, man. I got some notes on this one. Okay.
But listen, Walt Harris is an old guy, he's been around a while. His power is legendary. His hand speed is legendary. He's been one of the guys at the top of the division for quite a long time. He's just not a guy that's ever going to be over the top and be one of the best out there. And ultimately, if he can keep the fight on the inside, if he can keep the fight close and really work his hands in close, he's going to knock out. He's going to have a knockout that fight, 100%. I truly believe that. But if he can't, he's going to be in trouble. All right. Volkov has great stamina. Okay, he's got a great outside game. At 6'5" for Walt Harris, he doesn't see many guys that are much bigger than him. Volkov is at 6'7", right? So he does have some height on the guy. Maybe not strength, but definitely height. But I'm going to tell you what he does have over him. He has 100% stamina over Walt Harris, okay? Now, honestly, guys, this fight can go either way, but I'm leaning more towards Volkov in this fight. And really the reason why is Walt Harris does not have great stamina. and Volkov is definitely a seasoned fighter. He knows how to make the decisions in the ring, right? So even at minus 185, I'm okay with that. But when I look at these fights, I'm thinking that it's going to be a submission in the third round with Volkov, only because I think Walt Harris is going to gas out. So there's a couple different plays on this, right? You can get Volkov wins inside decision at plus 200. I'm sorry, plus 175 inside the distance, or you can get him at a decision at plus 200, or you could play it safe and go, let me get Walt Harris inside the distance at 240 and Volkov with the decision. Either way, they're both at plus money. You can play a little bit around, a little bit here and there, and really have a good diversity there in your money for that fight.
So what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that you like Volkov in the decision, or in? I think that was a little confusing. Or in the or within the distance. I mean,
yeah. I mean, look, you can go either way with that, Kiev. This is the way I'm looking at it. You can go either way. I haven't 100% decided on which way I'm going to go with it. I do feel that Walt Harris is going to gas out. So right now, my lean is towards Volkov inside the distance. You can get him at plus 170. Right? I think this is a third round or decision fight. I just have not decided and pulled the trigger because it's still a little bit early. But that's the way it's going to go. So if Harris inside the decision, or it's going to be Volkov winning. Harris inside the distance, or Volkov in a decision.
Oh, so you might get big plus money on both sides, is what you're trying to say. So so I thought you're saying Volkov for both of them. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So not a ton of lines out for this yet either. You know, I mean, it's early. It's Wednesday night when we're recording here, and Volkov wins inside the distance. Yeah, plus 170, but Volkov by decision is plus 200. I think you're saying that, and Harris wins inside the distance plus 240.
Yeah, I can't see Harris winning a decision, right?
Right.
I mean, Volkov really has to go in there and crap the bed, and I just don't see him as that type of character, that type of fighter, right? We never know what these guys are going through with their training, but Volkov has been around quite a long time, right? He did lose his last fight in a decision, so kind of going through his fights here, decision against two big fighters there. He got knocked out against Derek Lewis at the very end, but honestly, he's been on a roll. That Derek Lewis fight, he got knocked out with 11 seconds left, and he could have ran and won the fight in the decision there. So his last three fights should have gone to decision, but he's fought some of the best guys out there and really done well. I could see a decision fight. Just go for the points. Stay away on the outside. Stay away. Don't let Walt Harris get close. Don't let him get his game going, and then he can kind of take it away going to the decision. And
Walt Harris hasn't went to a decision since 2016, October 1st. 4 solid years, and he's had 10 fights since then.
Yeah,
I think that he'll get finished inside the distance personally, or not. I'm saying like it won't go to decision with him is what I think. I don't think there's any shot at it. So you're just trying to decide which one you want to take within the distance here. I think Volkov wins inside the distance plus 170, and Harris wins plus 240 within the distance. So so there you go. You could put a little bit on both and just make a little bit. Obviously, you get your 0.7 units per unit on if you take them both on if Volkov ends up winning inside the distance, or you get 1.4 with Harris. You could.
I could see Volkov doing a lot of outside fighting, scoring a lot of points. Just like he did against Derek Lewis, even though he got knocked out at the end, but he did beat up Derek Lewis. I could see the same kind of fight, going to 3 rounds, getting the decision, getting out, and having another big name under his belt. So, for me, it's going to be Harris inside the decision. You got plus 200, or it's going to be either the Volkov decision at plus 200 or inside the distance. So there's 3 plays there. 2 of them are going to go. Just not sure which one of the 2 are going to go.
Maybe Danny, if you decide something solid on this, why don't you tweet it out?
There you go.
All right. Well, let's move on to the main event. Then we got Khabib versus Justin Gaethje, my man. And holy cow, this fight is, I mean, we've been looking forward to this fight a long time. The odds have been out on this since June, dude. It's just a long time. And, we've seen what Khabib did to McGregor. The dude's a beast. He is undefeated. Justin Gaethje is just a fantastic fighter himself. It's just really weird for me to see Justin Gaethje, Danny, and a plus 275 next to him, right? I mean, blindfolded, I'd be jumping at that if I didn't see Khabib's name right there, So, I'm excited to watch this fight, and I might have an angle on this fight, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I'm not. This is not a play by any yet. As a matter of fact, I think if you want to make a play on this, what I'm going to say is that you wait till the very end. These guys aren't that heavy. They're 155 pounds, and a lot of people have seen what these fighters have done to other people, and they want to bet that someone's going to win within the distance. I'm not so sure about that because I think that Gaethje's just been looking forward to this, and there's no way he's going to get taken out. What you said, Brian Edwards said the same thing. I didn't think that Gaethje had that much grappling. I mean, I've watched probably 5 or 6 solid fights of his. I haven't seen them all, but he doesn't finish people with submission. He doesn't take people down to the ground, but yet he's a great wrestler. Well, that just tells me that when Khabib does take him down, he's not going to get submitted. And the only way Khabib's going to win is if he takes him down and does his work. Khabib's great on the floor. Gaethje's going to need to stand up to try to beat this, and Khabib's not going to let it happen. So you see how this, minus 200, the fight goes to decision, goes within the distance. Well, you get a plus 160, plus 170 right now that it actually goes to decision if you don't like either side. To be honest with you, I think Gaethje has a better shot if this thing goes to decision too. It kind of tells you that Khabib did his best and couldn't get it done. I don't know. Khabib has 10 decisions, right? Out of his 28-0 career here, and Gaethje is 22-2. But he's only has 2 decisions. But this is one that if you think Khabib's that much better, this might go to decision either way. But I'm just talking about the fat plus 275. If this goes to decision, you might be wanting to hold a 275 rather than a minus 335 just based on the price. If it was even money and it was going to decision, then yeah, you would definitely want a Khabib ticket. But in my opinion, I think that I'm going to wait for everybody to bet that this fight gets finished within the distance, and I'll take that the fight goes to the decision. Hopefully, I can get up to plus 190, plus 200. What are your thoughts, Danny?
Okay, so both extremely great fighters. Khabib is probably one of the best all time, and you know what makes him so great is his wrestling. I mean, he's one of the top guys of the top guys that just – once he gets on top of you, that's it. You're done. You can't move. And he wears people out, okay? Did it to Dustin Poirier, submitted him. Conor McGregor submitted him. He beat up on Conor. He probably could have finished the fight a little bit earlier. He beat Al Iaquinta in decision, but I'm going to chalk that up to last minute, the day before fight because of a falling out with Tony Ferguson. So, he does go to decision, but he's more than a decision fighter. I mean, since he's been in the UFC since 2016, he's been finishing guys, right? Except that Barbosa fight, he's been finishing guys, and he's just wearing them out with his wrestling is unreal. Like, even the top wrestlers, top guys in UFC are saying, listen, this guy's a 155-pounder. Nobody should have that strength. And that's his strength, his wrestling. Not many guys have ever done what he can do. Once he gets you to the ground, that's it. He's going to wear you down, ground and pound you. You're not getting away. Now, Justin does have some wrestling. He does have a good background in wrestling. The guy just doesn't use it because the guy wants to stand up and throw punches. And you know who's like that? Al Iaquinta. Al Iaquinta's got a good wrestling background. Khabib was a little bit hard for him to get Al on the ground, even though it was a day before fight. It was very difficult to get Al on the ground. I think it's going to be the same thing with Gaethje. Now, with Gaethje, he needs to really counterpunch quite a bit. He needs to be able to stay away from the takedowns and be able to counterpunch, because if he can counterpunch him, he can certainly take him out. Listen, I think Gaethje's probably the best guy that Khabib has fought. If you look at the guys that Gaethje has fought in the UFC, it's just absolutely ridiculous. They threw him into the fire, Kiev. I mean, into the fire. The first fight coming in there, there was no slouches walking in. Michael Johnson, the first fight, Eddie Alvarez, Poirier, James Vick, Barbosa, Cerrone, Tony Ferguson. That last fight with Tony Ferguson was a masterpiece. I've never seen somebody take a beating as bad as Tony Ferguson. And Tony Ferguson is one of the top guys in the UFC. I mean, gave him a beating.
That was an awesome fight. I watched that with you. I was texting with you. Yeah, that was amazing.
It was almost embarrassing.
Oh yeah, it was. We were screaming at the TV to tell him to call it. You know, what the hell was he letting Tony get beat up so long for? I mean, I guess that's when I say awesome, it was just crazy that happened all the way through the fifth round with 3 minutes and 39 seconds left. That's what made it a great fight. The fact that Tony didn't get knocked down.
Yeah. So when I see the plus 275, I see why. It's because Khabib is just that good. I mean, he's that good. My only concern is, he lost his dad this year due to COVID, and that was a very big factor in his life. It was basically the king dying, right? And here's this guy that had his father as his trainer for all these years and was somebody who was his backbone, his rock. I mean, will it affect him? I don't know. I don't know him personally, right? Maybe he's just blowing it off. Maybe, he's fighting extra hard for him, but is he losing anything with his training? And I look at that and I say, that could be a significant thing that he's losing, right? He's still not going to lose his skill set, but is he going to be able to dominate Gaethje like he dominated everybody else? I think there's a really good chance in that happening. And here's what I see. Khabib has never lost a round in the UFC.
I now that you say that rings a bell. Something I didn't think about though before this.
So, I mean, think about that. Never losing a round, or maybe lost one round, which is ridiculous. But think about that. That is ridiculous, right?
I don't think he lost one to McGregor, did he?
No.
And where would you? And just out of curiosity, McGregor, another stand-up guy. How close is Gaethje with McGregor?
I think Gaethje is better than McGregor.
Yeah, I think so too. And so I figured you'd say that. Conor McGregor is more the name and the hype and the fun. He had all those fights with Nate Diaz and everything. But definitely, I think the better fight's this one. The better fight is and the better challenge for Khabib is this one.
Yeah, Conor's got no ground game. Now he did beat up Dustin Poirier, which I thought was a really good, really good fighter, right? And he beat him up really good, and he took him out in the third round. And I will put Gaethje right there with the Poirier, right? So I'm really giving Gaethje it's hard for me to bet against him, I should say, because I've won so much money with him. He's been a dog a few times, and I've won a heck of a lot of cash with him. So it's hard for me to go against him. But so the play here is ultimately, I believe that Khabib is going to win this fight. Okay, it's going to be once he gets his hands on him, he's going to wear him out. And Gaethje has been known to wear out a little bit. I mean, his fight that he did lose against, let me pull it up here, Poirier, he gassed there in the third round and fourth round. He just gassed out, and he lost the fight because he gassed out, and that was the fourth round. I'm looking here at what round this is going to finish in. You can get some pretty good odds, Kiev, here, right? I don't think Gaethje's going to get knocked out by Khabib at all. I think he's probably most likely going to get submitted in either the third or fourth round. So Khabib in the third round, you can get a plus 600, which is just okay. But if he gets to that fourth round, it's a plus 1,000.
Wow. I mean, that's you're just kind of picking your poison there, and those are exactly the same odds that they give others in that situation.
But this is where I'm looking at it. I'm thinking that Gaethje's going to gas that third or fourth round.
Well, what's Khabib within the distance?
He's a minus 120, and it's okay, yeah. And that's another one you can put on, pay a little bit of juice, minus 120.
Well, geez, man, I figured it'd be more like minus 150 or minus 200 that he would. I mean, he's minus what 330 right now or something like that. Minus 335. I'm seeing in most books, 355 at Bookmaker, 326 at Sportbet. If you're convinced that this ain't going to decision, you can take that. My idea was that it goes to decision at plus 170 or plus 180, but you're starting to convince me the other way, and maybe you take Khabib within the distance. I don't know.
Yeah, he's just going to gas him. He's not a typical wrestler. He's a special guy when it gets down to the ground. Look, you can get some sites, Kiev. You can get a plus 400 at round 3 or 4, right? And that's where I think it's going to go. So ultimately, it's going to be inside the distance. Pay a little bit of juice, get it at minus 120. But Khabib is the play all day long. Not at that minus 335, but at that minus 120 inside the distance. I'm okay with that all day long.
Wow, man. Well, okay, you got me thinking here, and I guess you don't think that Gaethje's going to last at all, and I look at that. He's going to look at this fight as the biggest thing that's ever happened to him. Nothing's going to stop him. But
yeah,
he did. You're right. He did wear out against Poirier. And he also got beat up against Eddie Alvarez before that. And these are 2017, 2018 fights, but that's not like it was that long ago. So
yeah, and listen, but listen. I think Gaethje has fought better fighters than Khabib has fought here in the UFC. Right off the, you're looking at common guys. Michael Johnson. They both, that Michael Johnson fight was probably one of the best ones I've ever seen. But Khabib has fought, Poirier, beat up Poirier, and Poirier said, listen, that's the toughest guy I ever fought, right? And that was his last fight, and submitted him in the third round. Mm-hmm. He fought Conor. I'm not crazy about Conor as a fighter. L.I. Quinta, he's got a good stand-up game. Barbosa's a good guy. He went to decision with, but Michael Johnson. But before that, it was really,
No. Okay, so Khabib by submission's an interesting one too, but he also can throw those elbows when you're on the ground too, when you're on your back, like he did to Conor, man. Oh, yeah, he could do that too, and actually he ended up winning by submission, of course, against Conor. But no, that's true. All right, man. Well, definitely something to think about. I'm going to do a little bit more watching some of Gaethje's fights before I decide upon either Khabib within the distance at minus 120, maybe take a shot at round 4 at plus 1,000. What the hell, freaking throw some beer money on that or something.
Yeah.
Or it would be they both go to decision. But you kind of talk me. You're starting to talk me off the decision, my man.
Yeah, Gaethje's going to get worn out, and once he gets his hands on him, takes some time, he's going to wear him out, and that's my concern. Right, not his stand-up game. If he could figure out a way to be on the feet and not go to the ground, then it's going to be a Gaethje night. But honestly, it's nobody's done it before, and the dude's never lost a round.
And what's funny? The truth is, Gaethje hasn't went to. I guess he hasn't went the distance since 2014. And that's because his Tony Ferguson fight was just never stopped by the refs, and he
finished that in the 5th round. Yeah, he finished it.
Yeah. So it was never stopped. So that's important, and I think it should have been stopped earlier. But there you go. Yeah, I think you're right. So I'm leaning Khabib right here, but I'll decide if I'm going to make it a final play or not later, my man. Any final thoughts for UFC 254?
Go get this fight. I don't think you're going to be disappointed at all. I mean, if you like to see knockouts, if you like to see guys get submitted, if you like to see guys just throw down and not song and dance, but really, really throw down, I think you're really going to enjoy this fight. So I'm definitely doing it. I'm going to be throwing a big one at the house here this on Saturday morning, and then doing college after that. But for the most part, I think it's going to be really fun. Go do it. Go buy it.
All right, sounds great, Danny. Thanks so much for coming back on the Odds Breakers, my man. I'll be tweeting with you on Saturday during these early fights, and have a blast watching it, my man.
Okay. Thanks, brother.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for this long podcast. Went over an hour and a half here. Really appreciate you guys. If you have any questions for any games or want us to break down any games for next week, please tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Everyone, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the games, enjoy the fights, and go get some winners.